Hey everyone, welcome to the RotoGrinders Morning Grind podcast. I'm your host, Stevietpfl. It's Friday, November 22nd, 2024. We have an 8-game ML or NBA. I was thinking about baseball. But anyway, it's an NBA slate. Joined today by my good buddy, Will Priester, ChiefJustice06. Chief, it's Friday, which means it's NBA Cup Day. I can't tell you how excited I get for these NBA Cup days. They're just so much better than regular basketball days. I love basketball, don't get me wrong. But, man, these NBA Cup days, they make me super pumped. How are you doing, my friend?
Oh, man, I'm mostly doing better. For those of you that don't know, like both of my ears were like closed off. Stevie had like fluid in them or like something like that. And so this one still has some fluid in it. So I was testing to kind of see how my hearing was because I haven't really been able to hear like completely or like the way I should for, I don't know, a week or two now. And so but like both ears probably closed. It's just weird. So I got to go back to the doctor. They said I didn't have an ear infection, despite the fact that I couldn't really hear out of either ear that well. Now my right ear is doing much better. Hopefully it clears up. But yeah, man, no complaints. I'm glad to be here. This for the Friday show. I know I missed the Tuesday show. I know some people were telling me that feel better. So I really thank everybody for that. And thank you, brother, for being so flexible because I know, I don't like to miss shows. And so I'm thrilled to come back for yet another Cup Friday for sure.
Yeah, no back-to-back for Cup games. Yeah, like these are awesome. I'm glad you're feeling a little bit better. Set the line for you on this slate at like 9.5 mutes. So, because you won't be able to hear me. Will's like, too soon, Stevie, too soon. So yeah, I mean, I hope everyone's having a good Thursday night. This football game, wild. We'll just call it that. Like Jameis rushing touchdown. Like I love seeing Jameis do well. These guys. We'll see how it kind of pans out with that one with 2 minutes to go there. Let's get into some hoops. A lot to talk about. So we're going to jump right in. We got Brooklyn at Philadelphia, 216.5 total here. Philly, a 6-point favorite. Bogdanovich and Sharp remain out. Finney Smith and Claxton questionable. And then on the Philadelphia side, Paul George and Kyle Lowry out. So, flip-flopping this around a little bit for Philly. Let's go Brooklyn here first. What do we like here for the Nets?
So one of the things, Steve, that stood out to me for Brooklyn was the fact that a lot of these guys aren't that expensive anymore. Now I know Cam Johnson's up to 6,600. He's been fine this season, but like generally speaking, Claxton, if obviously Claxton were to play, he's 5,800. I don't hate that price. Ben Simmons, who has been earning his keep pretty well, Stevie. He's 5,400 with pretty good upside. I think he's got upside for mid-30s here in terms of fantasy points. Can he go and play in Philly is still yet to be seen since the trade. But so I think he's fine. If you need to get there, and then if Cam Thomas gets rolling, I feel like they should have a lack of defensive resistance with Paul George sitting and Lowry sitting. I don't consider Maxey to be like an elite defender. So I feel like a guy like Cam Johnson could absolutely put up a nice score here with some point in terms of real points. So I think Brooklyn's just okay. Obviously not my favorite team, but I didn't want to overlook some of those cheaper pieces.
Yeah, Cam Johnson over 30 minutes and, for the last 5 games, had an awesome night shooting the ball the other night against your Charlotte Hornets. 6 threes. So that was good to see. I mean, we saw Dennis Schroeder finally kind of get going last time out, 45 fantasy points, 6,800. They priced him up. Johnson or Simmons would be the two that I'd be looking at here. Simmons, I don't know if he's still point guard center on FanDuel, but I have more interest in playing him on FanDuel where you can play him as a guard instead of a center. hate the fact that he's center only on DK. So Philadelphia side, I mean, Maxi's back. Embiid's getting healthier. We saw Maxi return on Wednesday night, only play 20 minutes. I think he might see a little bit of an increase here, but Jared McCain played 41 minutes. He played a lot still. I think his usage is still going to kind of go down with Maxi out there. We saw Joel Embiid finally take 20 plus shots in a game. Still not giving us like that huge ceiling that we're used to. It is a cup game. There is no Paul George. There is no Kyle Lowry. What are we doing with the 76ers here?
I mean, look, man, no Paul George, no Kyle Lowry. I know Maxi's back, but the one thing about Embiid, we saw a little bit of the upside, Stevie, and then he played 35 minutes. So that's what I was most encouraged about. So, if you're telling me you're getting Embiid back to basically most of last season with just him and Maxi, I mean, we saw him put up 60, 70 fantasy points on the regular. So I think Joel Embiid is a great play. And, I think he's the guy now. I wish Kelly Oubre was going to play 30 minutes in the spot because I like his price. He could. I'm not saying he won't, Steve. I think it's possible with no Paul George and no Lowry. So I think in terms of Oubre at 5,700, like it's a tournament play only. Obviously, you wouldn't play him in cash, but that's probably worth it considering some of their primary wings will be out, and maybe you just kind of split with him and Caleb Martin. Like maybe you play them both, but don't play them together. But one of those two should have a good game, considering two of their other guards are out.
Yeah, they started Caleb Martin the other night, and then when Paul George got hurt, Yubasele came in off the bench and played basically the whole third quarter, didn't check back in for the fourth quarter of that game. So I thought that was kind of interesting. They closed with Oubre over Yubasele. So it'd be interesting to see who starts out of those two. Luckily, this is an early game, so I mean, if Yubasele starts, he's a hustle player, man. I'd have some interest in him in this like cup type of game.
Can't overlook that price.
Yeah, that's such a good price tag. But I mean, McCain started the other night with Maxi back, and we were kind of wondering what that was going to look like, and we kind of saw it, right? 19% usage from McCain. He'd been a guy that had been kind of living in that like 28 to 32, basically every game. So I like Jared McCain, and I think he's a really talented young player, but I'm definitely worried about his usage with Maxi and Embiid out there. Yeah, Paul George is out, so that's some usage to go around, but I don't think we're seeing like 28% Jared McCain usage. He's 6,500 too. It's not like he's cheap, so I'm probably looking at some cheap pieces here. It'd be interesting to see if we kind of get any news on like Maxi's minutes, whether or not how many minutes he plays now. So Boston at Washington, 236 total here. Boston, a 15-point favorite. Porzingis out for Boston. Bagley, questionable. Bay out. So I think this is a really interesting spot. And the reason that I think this is a really interesting spot is because if this game was just a normal game, who cares that much, right? Like Boston's winning this basketball game. I would be literally shocked if Boston doesn't win this basketball game. But with Boston losing in the NBA Cup already, and then beating Cleveland the other night, don't you think that Boston comes out and tries to win this game by 30, 35 points?
I mean, in terms of Cup standing seedings, they're not out of it, obviously. And
yeah, but their differential is like Cleveland's differential is plus 15, Boston's plus 2, Atlanta's plus 13. This is the game. If you're the Celtics, you have it circled, right? Like I have to go out and win this game by 30.
Yeah, well, and that's what I was about to say. Like they're not out, but like they need a blowout here. So this is a game they can't afford to take their foot off the gas. So I'm with you. I think this is a great game for Boston. And it's against Washington. So we already know the pace should be up a little bit for Boston. We also know, so Washington's one of those teams where they're like the perfect combination. One of the highest paced teams in the league with one of the worst in defensive efficiency. Like it's the best of both worlds here, Stevie. And I'm with you. I think they try to boat race Washington here. So All of these guys are in play. I know you've been a lot higher on Jaylen Brown over the season than I've been, but this is a spot at 8,200. I don't mind Brown. He could go for 50 plus easily here.
Yeah, I mean, I think in this spot, I prefer Tatum over Brown, just because, like, I think he has a little bit more upside filling the stat sheet than Brown does. I don't even necessarily hate like a cheap Derek White in this spot, but I circled this one and I said to myself, like, Boston tries to win this game by 30. Al Horford, I think, is a really interesting cheap center play. You know, he's been a guy that's been producing really well here recently, so I don't necessarily even hate him on the cheap end, but I mean, there's a lot of injuries in a lot of spots. I mean, the whole New Orleans team is questionable today, so we'll see how some of the news kind of breaks out. But, I mean, I want exposure to Boston in this game where I probably wouldn't if this game was today, I mean, Thursday, because, I mean, you just look at it and you're like, they do everything they can to win this game by as many points as possible. I mean, and that's just the NBA Cup philosophy. And, like, how the NBA Cup works too. It's not just like their little group. Like the fourth seed is like the best point differential out of all the Eastern Conference. So this is a huge spot. Like Orlando's plus 37 and they have to play the Knicks still. So like, you know, if the Knicks beat them, Orlando loses by a little. The Orlando beat Charlotte by so many points the other night that like, they're in a good spot point differential. So I just regularly, I don't think I'd have a ton of interest here, but I think Boston, again, I think Boston does everything they can to try to win this game by as many points as possible, leaving their starters in deeper into this game if the game's out of hand. So I like it. Washington side, I don't know what to like here on the Washington side. As much as I like the Boston side, I don't really love the Washington side. We did see Kyle Kuzma play a back-to-back the other night, but I just like Washington where they're at. I don't think they're going to run their guys out there. Like, you know, if this game gets out of hand, I feel like this is a regular basketball game for them. They're not making it out of this group process for the Cup. A little realistic, right? Like, they already have one loss, so like, and their point differential is really bad. So yeah, I mean, I don't think they're making it out of this round.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't think so either. They did get the price bumps down though, because of the situation. So like Kuzma 66, Koulibaly back down to 5,800, Poole 7K. So I think that's the enticing value. Valanciunas at 4,800, Steve, is pretty much. I think he's in play every day now because he can play 20 minutes and get 30 fantasy points. Like at 4,800, even against Boston, I think he's in play. And I think the intriguing part about Washington are the cheaper prices for them, with the expectation that Boston kind of handles them a bit today.
Yeah, I mean, so I think like if you're trying to think about like who potentially plays 30 plus minutes, maybe like a Carrington, cheap, has a little upside. I don't hate the Valanciunas call, but I feel like Valanciunas is probably one of the first guys off the floor in a blowout. So, I mean, I am a little concerned about that, but I don't hate the idea of taking some shots here. Keyshawn George might play a little bit extra in a blowout, so I don't think this game stays close.
Yeah.
All right, we got Golden State at New Orleans, 222.5. Golden State, 9.5 point favorite. Melton's out for Golden State. Will, grab a beer, take a break. Pelicans. Alvarado's out. Hawkins is questionable. Ingram is questionable. Jones is out. McCollum's doubtful. Missy's questionable. Murray's out. Zion's out. All right, hopefully that tasted good. We'll go to the Golden State side here first. They continue to play deeper rotations, but we have seen in these cup games, Curry has some upside. Draymond has some upside. They typically will run them out a couple extra minutes in these games. Just don't see a lot of meat on the bone with Draymond. I don't see a lot of meat on the bone with Steph. I worry about this minute situation here more than anything else for Golden State.
Yeah, but like you said, this cup game, man, I think these main pieces are going to be fine, like you said. And I think we talked about this the last time that it was either Tuesday or Friday and they were on it. And I think we saw Curry hit some upside in that game. If I'm not mistaken, was that the Dallas game where he played 35 minutes? Was that the Dallas game?
Yep.
Yeah, that was the Dallas game. I mean, we saw 64.5 fantasy points.
That game was everything we wanted it to be.
Yeah.
Him and Clay back and forth. Oh, that game was everything we wanted it to be.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think I'm fine with Curry. I actually think I'm fine with Draymond if he's going to play 35 minutes. I'm just afraid he's going to cut his own minutes short by doing something stupid on the court and getting ejected. But hopefully he realized this is an important game for his franchise. He played 32 minutes that last Dallas game, put up 39 fantasy points. Could see something similar here. But I think those are the two for me that I would strongly consider playing.
Yeah, I mean, again, you look at these NBA Cup games differently than you look at any other games. In my opinion, I've been saying this a lot, but you just look at this game and you're like, all right, well, Golden State already beat Dallas, which is definitely probably the hardest other team in this division, and Dallas is plus 38. So Golden State doesn't want to lose a game. They're not getting in if they lose a game over Dallas because Dallas's point differential is just so incredibly high. We'll talk about the Dallas-Denver game here in a little bit, but I don't have a ton of interest in Golden State, but I think you could potentially take shots on Curry and Draymond. Those are the two guys that I would play here. And then on the Pelicans, I mean, they're impossible to break down the night before because the whole team is questionable. If Ingram and McCollum both end up sitting and Hawkins ends up sitting, Elf Payton started and played 22 minutes for the Pelicans the other night. He started and played 22 minutes. How bad is this team right now? Yeah, I want to see the injury report. Reeves played 40 minutes. He took 25 shots. Obviously, Trey Murphy was out in that game. Trey Murphy should be back here. I don't hate Trey Murphy at 5,900, but even his price tag, your famous quote here, no real meat on the bone for Murphy. What are we doing with the short-handed potentially Pelicans?
I mean, man, look, cup game, Stevie. We always need value. I think we're playing all this value. I mean, they don't have a lot of players, so it's not like, they're going to roll out 15 guys here. So I think we take the guys that are going to get the minutes. James Robinson Earl should have big minutes if these guys are out. You talked about, Hawkins, possibly being but I think you play the guys that are going to be there. Trey Murphy's another one. He's 5,900, but I mean, he could go off for 40 here. So that's what I think we do with this team, Stevie. They've got a fair amount of value if all of these guys sit.
Well, it's all going to come down to the injury news. This situation is impossible to break down right now because Ingram, McCollum, Hawkins all matter so much, whether they're in or out. McCollum's doubtful. I don't think he plays. Hawkins being questionable, Ingram being questionable. It really just sounded like Ingram was a day off the other day, but I mean now they're reporting he had a sprained ankle, so he might legitimately be questionable. And you got to remember, Golden State's defense is really good. Golden State's playing some basketball this year.
They are, man.
All right, we got Pacers and Bucks. This game's awesome. 236 total. Milwaukee a 5-point favorite on the Pacers side. Nembhard, Nesmith, Jackson, Wiseman out. Shepherd questionable. Milwaukee, Middleton, and Rollins out. We're going to the Pacers here first. What do we like here for Indiana?
A lot, actually, because, Stevie, Milwaukee's defense still hasn't been great. We've seen, McConnell kind of have this interesting 20 to 25-minute role. He's 4,800. I don't hate that. Maybe I'm just a sucker for this, Stevie, but Hallie at this low 8K range, I know he's not putting up 50, 60 every night, but I still think that's that's a really good price for a guy that we know has tremendous upside. So I'm in on that price. We've seen Miles Turner. I've talked about him, Stevie, where a lot of these games this season he's been playing in the 30s rather than the 20s. So he's a guy that I like. Pascal Siakam, because of his lack of consistent 40 to 50 point games, his price has continued to plummet. He's 7,200. So I think the prices on this team for the main guy, and I guess Benedict Mathurin, his price has come up because he's been so productive. But I still think there's plenty of upside for Siakam, for Halliburton, for Miles Turner. So I think those are good prices, and they're definitely in play.
TJ McConnell's interesting. If we get news that Shepard's going to sit, I think McConnell the game got out of hand the other night. That's why he only played 19 minutes against Houston. I think McConnell, 25-minute guy. Mathurin has been playing really good basketball. I'm willing to overlook that Houston game. It was just a bad game, happens. Outside of that, man, do you remember NBA Cup last year and how crazy Halliburton went? He was he was on another level for the NBA Cup last year. But I really think my favorite play here is probably Mathurin and McConnell. But I'd say that I don't think Halliburton is a terrible large field tournament play in this game. Giannis, he's really good at basketball. Raw points wise, definitely one of the best raw points plays on the slate. It's really whether or not are you paying up for 2 or 3 people in the next game, the Atlanta Chicago game, or are you playing Giannis at his $12K price tag?
Oh man,
magic.
I don't know if I do it today, Stevie, because if he gets 65 fantasy points today, I'm just using that as a kind of a benchmark. That's close to 70. Don't get me wrong, but even at 65, I don't think he's optimal today. If that makes any sense, I think you get more value by Halliburton going for 52-ish. I'm not saying he's going there, but I'm saying if Halliburton goes for 50, let's just say Halliburton goes for 50. I think there's more value in a 50 from Halliburton, a 50 from a guy or 45 from a guy like Siakam rather than a 65 from Giannis at 12K. So I'm not telling anyone to not play Giannis. Clearly, Giannis, we feel would have a really good game here in this spot, but I don't know if the cost is worth the price of admission. We've got Dame at 8,900. I think Dame could go for 50 this spot, which would make him comparable to Giannis's 65 at the price. So once again, Damian Lillard is not Giannis Antetokounmpo. I'm not saying he is, but I'm saying I do think in this matchup at home, cup game could be a comparable score.
Yeah, me and Dame are not on talking terms right now after my Dame loving in that Chicago game, and he just kind of had a good game. Needed him to have a great game. And I got the ownership right in that game with Lillard over Giannis, and Dame just didn't. Dame didn't show up. It was just Damian that day. Yeah, I mean, this is the type of game that I don't even hate Brook Lopez. Brook Lopez has been absolutely crushing. He's played at least 30 minutes in 5 straight games, and he's had multiple games over 40 fantasy points. I think 3 of his last 5 he's had over 40 fantasy points. So they need his size in this game. I think Brook Lopez as a mid-range center is not a bad play. Dave, yeah, I mean, I agree, Dave. Indy was very hot in the in-season tournament last year. They did their thing for sure. All right, moving on. We got Atlanta at Chicago. The game of the night by far, in my opinion. 242 total. Nobody on the injury report for Atlanta. Ball and Williams out for Chicago. I mean, this game, it's the 2 fastest paced teams in the NBA. I mean, we'll start with that. And it's 2 teams that are ranked in the bottom 10 in defense. There's going to be a lot of fantasy production in this game. Everything. I mean, there's so many things you could play here. We'll start with the Atlanta side, but Jalen Johnson is one of my favorite plays on the entire slate. And we're going to talk about Trae Young. Don't get me wrong, But Jalen Johnson is going to absolutely smash these wings for Chicago. He's just going to have a monster game. Williams is actually a decent defender. The fact that he's out is big. Like Jalen Johnson, love him. Obviously have interest in like Trey. I don't hate Dyson Daniels, but I really think this is a day where I'm just paying up for Jalen Johnson. I think this is a Jalen Johnson spot.
Yeah, I like Jalen Johnson in this game for sure, Stevie. I mean, and the price is down to 8,300. We've seen him as high as, I think it was 89, Stevie, somewhere near there. Don't quote me on that, but I think he's been as high as 89. A lot of these guys, the prices seem to be down for this slate, so I like him a ton. I've kind of planned my season around the Atlanta Bigs with kind of this interesting split with, I take Capella and Okongwu around the same ownership, Stevie. Any event one goes off, at least I get it. I just don't ever play them together. Capella's been the guy over the last few games where his upside is kind of shown for the price and for the amount of minutes he's playing. But it could easily be Okongwu, so I'm not getting caught up in it. I'll keep my same philosophy and split the centers. I already talked about Johnson and the fact that, I really like him. DeAndre Hunter's back. He's played 20. I'm so sorry. I think he's played 25-ish minutes in the past 2 games. Hopefully his minutes continue to increase. And if so, he will absolutely be a good investment. Another guy that we can take a shot on. And then last but not least, let's get down to Trae Young here, who is the leader of this team. Once again, you talked about it, one of the best spots of the night. I mean, he's 9,200. You wonder why I don't want to play Giannis at 12-3. So many good spots for kind of stud type players. So love Trae, love the Hawks in this spot. Equally as much, I probably love Chicago also.
Oh yeah, I mean it's a great spot. I think the wing situation is kind of cloudier now with Bogdanovich back too, with Hunter back, like you mentioned. I mean, I think it's just going to be one of those, I think it's, sorry, I got distracted. I didn't see I saw someone post in chat about Pickens getting picked up and carried out of the end zone. That's wild. So I'm really interested in watching the replay. If somebody wants to, at me on Twitter on a video of that. I'm so curious to see that. Anyway, so the wing situation I feel like is just a little bit more crowded now. I will say we got to continue to watch this Buffkin minutes with him being back too. So that's going to eat into some minutes for these guys as well. Chicago. Man, I feel like this is just one of those spots where you make a group of Zach LaVine and Kobe White, and you try to, if you're playing a 20 entry max, you just play one of them, one or the other on every team, because I feel like one of Zach LaVine or Kobe White smashes in this spot.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I typically side with LaVine, and maybe that's just a weakness for me, Steve. But obviously, if you treat them like the Hawks centers, I'm with you. I don't think you can go wrong here. And these guys are really cheap to be what I consider the leaders of this team. You got Vooch in there at 7,800. He should get his minutes. They're going to have bigs out there. I was thinking Josh Giddey may have been a little cheap also, Stevie. I know we haven't seen him play 30-plus minutes a lot. And I don't know what he's done to NBA coaches to not play him 30 minutes consistently. I don't know what he's done, Stevie, but this is a cup game. I feel like they'll need him to play. So I don't mind risking it at 6K against the Hawks.
Doesn't Vooch seem a little cheap for this spot?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think Vooch is a little cheap for this spot. Yeah. Torrey Craig at 4,500 might be another guy you take some shots on here with Williams already rolled out. I think if you want to roll the dice on him, I think that it's not a bad idea. I mean, he played 28 minutes last time out against Milwaukee. If he could shoot the ball well, he could crush at 4,500. So just a really good game. Just a really good game. Definitely a game you want to pay up for some studs. I have this game circled. I think everyone's going to have this game circled. It's a game to have circled on the slate for sure.
Yep.
Portland at Houston, 217.5 total. Houston a 13-point favorite, Ayton doubtful. Simmons and Henderson both questionable. Houston's full strength, ready to go. We continue to deal with Ayton doubtful now. Simons and Henderson, Scoot Henderson down on the injury report as well. What a mess of a situation for Portland. Houston's going to dominate this basketball game, but what do we like here on the Portland side, DFS wise?
I want to like something, and I feel like Robert Williams is a guy that we're going to gravitate towards, and nobody's going to play Klingon. I feel the same way about this as I do about these centers in Atlanta, Steve. You just split them and play them both. Either could get there. I know Klingon got there the last time, but I think either one of these guys could get there. Obviously, you got kind of this solo role for Jeremy Grant now where he played 40 minutes. Only put up 27 fantasy points, but clearly the minutes upside is there if they can keep it close. So at 6,100, Stevie, I'm fine with it. I know Houston doesn't necessarily play at a tip-top level of pace, and they're going to be a pretty good defensive team, but I still think at that price, he should be fine. You've got Denny Avdi in here now who's kind of not getting 30 minutes, but in this spot could get 30 minutes. If you want to plug him in, fine. They're playing Tamani Kamara. They are playing Shaden Sharp. If these guys are out, Delano Benson. They're playing so many guys. But I still think, there's some value if you can kind of nail how you think the rotation will go. They're all cheap enough to play. You just can't play them all together. I think that's what I'm really trying to communicate.
I think it matters a lot whether or not, if Simons and Scoot both are out, it's open season for these cheap guys. That's where you really especially with Ayton doubtful, that's where you are going to be taking shots on these cheap guys. Kamara, he played 38 minutes the other night. If Scoot or if either one of them sit, expect him to play big minutes again. And I think Portland could keep this game somewhat competitive. It's just not a juicy pace up spot defensive matchup. So. Definitely interested in some of this Portland value, depending on whether or not Henderson and Simon sits. On the Houston side, they're just a really good basketball team. Portland's not a good defensive team by any means. This is definitely a spot, Houston should dominate. Portland, a bottom 10 team defensively, defensive efficiency. So, Sengun, Van Vliet, Green, Thompson, all playable if you're wanting to run back a Portland player and hope this game stays close.
Yeah, absolutely. Very affordable prices for these guys. Green, we've seen Green as high as 8K this season, Stevie, over 8K. And, he's down to 6,400, I think the minutes will be there if this game is anywhere near competitive because of the cup. So like him, Fred VanVleet is a guy that I've been playing, Stevie. I'm going to continue to play him. And then Sengun at 8,400. I really like him. Now, one of the guys that you mentioned that I wanted to highlight was Amin Thompson, because if this game were to get somewhat out of hand, Stevie, I feel like he's the guy that could go from 24 to 25 minutes to 25 to 29 minutes. If the game just got out of hand early. So want to highlight him. I think he's a really good tournament play today.
So we'll say this too. Houston did not let off the gas when they played the Clippers in their first NBA Cup game. They won by 21 points. So remember that, right? Again, these aren't regular basketball games. This is the fun thing about the NBA Cup, right? Houston, they won that game by 21, and Sengun played in the blowout until the 2:30 mark of the fourth quarter. He played 33 minutes in a game that was never close. This game was never close. They beat the Clippers. At halftime, it was 18. And I think the lowest it got down to on game flow right here is 15. And Sengun played, he played 17 or 15 second half minutes in a game that was never under 15 points. So if you want to know what these point differentials and these NBA Cup games, they're playing their studs. Sengun played 33. Jabari Smith played 35. Van Vliet played 34. Dylan Brooks played 33. But, I mean, Jalen Green didn't play the fourth quarter in that game. But Jalen Green's been dealing with some injuries. So, like, I mean, these NBA Cup games are huge. That's all I'm saying. Like, they're gonna try to beat Portland by 25. I mean, that is like, I mean, it's just, that's how I look at these games, man. I look at these games as these teams that can try to win by a lot. They're gonna try to win by a lot. And I mean, on the Portland side, like, they want to win this game because, you know, obviously they beat Minnesota. So yeah, they want to win this game too. All right, we got Dallas at Denver. This is a game. Here we go. 229.5. Denver's a 4-point favorite. Luka's out. Exum's out. Gordon's out. Jokic questionable. Kyrie with no Luka in an NBA Cup game priced up to 9,800. Like, we know the sample size. We know his usage goes way up when Luka's off the floor. Can he pay off 9,800 in a game that should be very competitive?
He could, but it's still not like guaranteed.
It's a tough
he
price.
He should have been 8,900. 8,900 feels like the right price.
So I mean, if he's 8,500, he's 40% owned on the slate, if not more.
I said 89.
Yeah. I mean, the extra $400. I hear you.
I mean, he gets the 9K. You got to think about it. 9,800. You're thinking about it, and you're thinking about not playing it, which probably means we should. But I still don't think that's a great allocation of salary. You know, considering the situation. Klay Thompson is 5,800. I think he's fine. I think he's okay. You know, you look around this Dallas team, and I mean, it's pretty much built for Luka. Now, Quentin Grimes is probably going to play. What do you think, Stevie? 25, 30 minutes. He's 4,200. Like, he's a guy.
One of my favorite value plays on the slate.
Yeah, he's a guy that you probably get in, and I think you move it from there.
PJ Washington, he's really popping on court IQ with Luka off. 5% usage increase, almost a half a fantasy point more per minute with Luka off the floor. It's only a 59-minute sample size, but he's really popping with on court IQ. So I potentially taking some shots on PJ Washington, even at 6K in this game. I don't hate Clay, but I really like Quentin Grimes today. I think Quentin Grimes is going to see 30 minutes in this game, and he's a guy that can do it all. He can get rebounds, he can play defense, he can get you some stocks, and he can score. So I think we see Quentin Grimes have a big game. Yeah, I mean, I probably don't get to a lot of Kyrie, and I know it's probably a mistake. But even in this year, when we take Luka off the floor in 148 minutes, 1.3 fantasy points per minute, just not enough at this price point. Like, we're going to have plenty of guys popping for 1.5, 1.55 type of plays at this price point. So might be one of those days where I feel like I end up under on Kyrie. Yeah, I think he's. Yeah. And then on the Denver side, I mean, it all kind of depends on Jokic. We know that, like, he missed practice again on Thursday.
Yep.
I haven't looked into what's going on. I don't typically look into what's going on when, like, there's like a personal thing. Just kind of respect people's privacy. But yeah, I mean, who knows? If he's out, like, this game is just a load up game, both sides.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we've seen some nice games from Michael Porter Jr. You know, during this stretch, Stevie. So, like, you look back and we had 47 against Memphis, 38 against the Pelicans, 40 against Miami. I think Jokic actually played in that game. But, you know, I'm perfectly fine with playing these guys. Christian Braun has kind of been a guy that we've played a lot this season. You know, he's a guy that can get you into the mid-30s for 5,800. And I feel like Jamal Murray, he's 8,600. Stevie, why couldn't we make Kyrie 8,600? Like, it's the same situation in my book. So why is Kyrie 98 and he's 86? I don't know. But at 8,600, I think that's a fine price. I was hoping Russell Westbrook would kind of really just take off here, Stevie, consistently. What do you know? 54 fantasy points against Memphis. Now, I know that was against Memphis, but he played 32 minutes. I was very encouraged to see the 32 minutes. I'm hoping they could give him something similar in this game if Jokic were to sit. If he gets 30 minutes, Stevie, I mean, that's 30 fantasy points, I think, and upside for a bit more than so. Really like Russell Westbrook also.
So chat saying he had a baby. I didn't look into it. I'm not going to sit here and say I looked into it. So he could potentially be back for this game if everything is good. You know, we obviously always hope that everything's good. Be really interesting if Jokic plays in this game because I mean he coming off of a new dad. Oh, he could smash here. But if he plays, I don't have as much interest in Denver. But if he's out, like, go back to the well on Murray, Porter, Braun, Westbrook, Watson. So yeah, that was a rumor. See, this is why I didn't look into it. I mean, he'll be back. Good to go.
Yeah.
All right, we got the final game of the night: Kings and Clippers, 220.5. The Kings a 2-point favorite. Monk out, Kawhi and Powell out for the Clippers. Let's start here with the Kings. Yeah, I mean, nothing really new injury-wise. What do we like here for the Kings?
Not much, Stevie. Only because I mean, I feel like everybody's priced what they should be, and then some people are priced a bit higher because guys were sitting and they were playing. So I'm not really thrilled about the Kings in this spot. I mean, I do think DeRozan is okay at this price. So maybe DeRozan at 7,700, but Kevin Huerter's kind of overpriced now for the role that he'll have with DeRozan back. I think Fox is overpriced. It just you know, everybody's priced up from the previous roles that they had with these a few guys having injuries.
Yeah, I was looking really quick at their first cup game against Minnesota. Yeah, I mean, we saw Sabonis play 40 minutes in that game. He played overtime. It was at overtime. I don't know. I'm kind of with you. I don't really have a ton of interest in the Kings here. Like if anything, like it'd be like a De'Aaron Fox, just because like he's the guy that like could have the ball in his hands a lot and like kind of take over a game. We saw that in the Minnesota game. I was just looking really quick. He played 44 minutes. He took 35 shot attempts in their first NBA Cup game. Went to the free throw line 11 times. He scored 60 actual points and 82 DraftKings points in their first Cup game. So, what does the NBA Cup mean to you? You know, where they're at. I mean, they're still very much in it because overtime games count as a 0-point differential. They don't count the final score of the overtime game. So if you lose or win, it's a 0-point differential for OT games. I was reading about that the other day because I was curious about it, but. So, I mean, they're very much still alive if they can win out. The Kings are. But, you know, obviously I think the Western Group A kind of goes through Houston. So, Houston's a really good place to point differential already. So, you know, the Kings, they need to win out. So, this is a big game for them. Clippers side of this game, I mean, in a normal game, I'd say I don't really have a ton of interest. But in a cup game, I mean, maybe some interest in Harden. I really wish they just play KPJ more because he is the guy that has the upside if he would just get 25 minutes. And I would take large field tournament shots on him regardless, but he's the guy that I really want to play.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't hate Zubac. Zubac's been pretty good this season. Honestly, Stevie, hear me out. In this type of matchup, I don't hate a guy like Derrick Jones Jr. at 3,600. Like, for this spot, you know what I mean? Like, 3,600, you could do worse. So I think the price has my interest. And kind of the same thing for Harden. I'm with you on Porter Jr., man. I wish they would just give him stable minutes. But, yeah, so I like the Clippers more than I like Sacramento because of the prices. But still not guys that I'm going to just be loaded up on.
Yeah, so they started Dunn, Coffee, Jones, Harden, Zubac the other night with no Powell. And Dunn played 25 minutes in that game. Coffee played 33, so I think Coffee has a little bit more upside. But, I mean, Kevin Porter Jr. with these guys moving to the starting lineup with Dunn out, with Powell out, like Kevin Porter Jr. had, I mean, his usage has been really, really solid. I mean, it's just matter of minutes, right? 28, 36, 16, 25, 7, 27, 29, 32, 27, 27. Like the usage rate for Kevin Porter Jr., like if this, with this being like a cup game, if they just give him 25 minutes in this game instead of 20, that 5 extra minutes could mean, 8 more fantasy points. So I'm going to take some large field tournament shots on KPJ. Zubac, I don't hate, but like, my problem with Zubac in this matchup is Vooch is $600 more, and I like Vooch way more. But Zubac's just been very consistent, and I like Brook Lopez a little bit cheaper. So, all right, let's play the morning grind game, and then we'll send it off for the weekend. We got some NFL right around the corner. Love this NBA Cup slate. Favorite play under 5K to go 7X. Who do you got?
Oh boy, Steve, I feel like I just talked about someone that I would consider, but I'm not going to play him.
Man, I did a pitching lesson yesterday. I haven't done a pitching lesson in forever, and like my arm is so sore right now.
Yeah.
I'm giving you time.
Well, I know who your guy is.
I'm interested to see if you actually do know who my guy is.
Well, I think I know who it is. I feel like I have too many guys, but this, for whatever reason, man, this guy's jumping off the page at me today. Maybe I'm wrong. Give me Jonas Valanciunas at 4,800.
Yeah, you do like him a lot. You mentioned it. Who do you think my guy is? I'm so curious now.
I think it's Quentin Grimes.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I said how much I absolutely love him today. I think this is just – I think Quentin Grimes plays 30 minutes with Luka out. And with that being said, he's a guy that can put up fantasy points. I like him a lot. I also really like Al Horford today for what it's worth. I think Al Horford is just $700-800 too cheap on DraftKings today. Tiger Bomb? Oh, yeah, I like Tiger Bomb. I do use Tiger Bomb. Oh, what's the other one? I can't think of the name of it right now. There's another one that I really like too, and I mean, has a green label. Gosh, anyway. I can't think of the name of it right now. It has a spray. I use the roll-on sometimes too, but I get sore every once in a while from hitting volleyballs at volleyball practice. But yeah, I mean, no, I haven't thrown a baseball in forever. Over 8K to go under at 5X. Who is your bust today?
Oh, man. I do think we have some options, Stevie, but I don't think there are a lot of them. And so for me, I think the one guy that I feel like could let us down is possibly going to let us down. I'm going all the way up here to the top, man. Almost to the top. Give me Domantas Sabonis.
Oh, going for the bust up towards the top. I mean, I don't hate it. This guy finally had, like, I want to say Joel Embiid, but the fact that he finally went over 50 and he had some shots, like, I mean, I'm really worried about, like, him. I think I'm going to go to his running mate here and say Tyrese Maxey at 8,400. I think that just the minutes are, I feel like they're going to be careful bringing him back from, it was a hamstring, right? Like you can't just roll him out 35 minutes. Jared McCain's been playing too well where I don't feel like they have to roll out Maxey for 35 minutes. So Tyrese Maxey is where I'm going to go today. I hope he pops in projections today with no Paul George, but I'm really worried about his minutes more than anything else. And a hamstring injury is something you can re-injure. The hamstring injuries in NBA worry me, man. Favorite 6X play today?
So this is where it gets interesting to me because I feel like there's always balance between the lower price guys, the higher price guys. We're probably going with someone in the same game. My guy has been Zach LaVine all year. I'm not going away from that. Give me Zach LaVine at 7,400.
Yeah, I mean, anybody from that game. I'm going to go Jalen Johnson. He's my favorite player in the slate today. I already said it. Yeah, that game's awesome. Favorite GPP ceiling play? Who do you think has the highest ceiling on the slate today?
Oh, man. So I'm going back to the Philly game, and it's the most unobvious play because I think people still feel like he's kind of getting back in the rhythm here, Stevie. It's Joel Embiid at 10-1, man. My gosh, if he goes back to anything close to what he was doing last season at 70 fantasy points. Like I can't ignore that against Brooklyn.
I'm going to get Trae Young. As much as I like Jalen Johnson, if Jalen Johnson doesn't do well, Trae Young is capable of 70-plus fantasy points in this game. This game is fast-paced. It is going to be very little defense. It is going to be the highest scoring game potentially on the slate. I think Trae Young has a huge ceiling. As much as I like Jalen Johnson, I think Trae Young has a huge ceiling today. Let's get weird. GPP play of the day. Who do you got today?
Man, I really hope that this guy sits, Stevie. I think he's going to sit, and I still don't think people are going to gravitate too much to the ownership in that game. Give me Jamal Murray at 8,600. I think that's super weird for this slate.
Yeah, I mean, it could be for sure. I'm going to kind of go a little off the board. Give me Brook Lopez as my let's get weird GPP play of the day. Brook Lopez has been balling out. Any bets you like for this slate?
I do. And Stevie, this one is actually this is a spread play here. This is a spread play. Hear me out. We've seen the Pacers play okay basketball. They're 6-9. The Bucks are 6-9. Bucks are at home. I still think the Pacers have a bit more here, Stevie, in terms of what they are as a team. And I know I said spread. I meant money line, so sorry. Please forgive me. But I don't think the Pacers should be plus 170, plus 176, plus 175. Best odds are at FanDuel right now, plus 176. I actually think the Pacers win this game outright against the Bucks. So give me the Pacers at plus money. Like, I think that line's off.
I could see Indiana winning that game for sure. It is in Milwaukee. The Bucks have been playing a little bit better, so like I get the aspect of the line, but usually home favorites usually are 3 point. Like you get 3 points for being at home. So I mean, the books are saying Milwaukee's a 2-point favorite in this game over Indiana, and I think it's closer than that. So I don't disagree with you. My favorite bet today. Jalen Johnson over 31.5 points, rebounds, assists. I already talked about it. I think this game is just fantasy gold. This is definitely one of those games where I hope that Hard Rock sends me like a 30% single game parlay for Friday for NBA Cup. They've been doing it every once in a while. Send me that 30% here, and I'm going to load up on this single game parlay. I think this game is awesome.
Yep.
Will, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
Yeah, man. Play Zach LaVine, more than 22.5 points on FanDuel, minus 108.
There you go. Hope everyone has a fantastic weekend. We're back Monday talking hoops. Good luck, everyone. We'll see you.